Welcome to the German Shepherd dog on velour paper using pastel. I've transferred my drawing of my German Shepherd dog onto beige velour paper. And now I'm putting down a base coat of 704.7. The base coat of gray will help the other pastel to adhere to the surface better and give that velvety look that I so love about velour. I'm cross-hatching my strokes. I put my drawing down with charcoal pencil. I generally use a 6B, and I've marked all of the darker areas in the ear and around the nose and mouth, and they'll show through when I add darker layers of pastel on top. Now, after I finish adding the gray layer, I want to add a light brown. So I'm going to use 409.8 Rembrandt, which is a burnt umber color, and I'm just adding this brown over most of the dog. I'm avoiding the eyes and the mouth area. And this is just a light brown. We're going to go darker. So I'm putting it on the areas of brown. If you have a German Shepherd or you're familiar with them, you know that each one has a distinct coloring, and even though they're very similar, we want to make sure we get the brown in the right places on the dog. Now this one I'm putting the brown in the ears as well. But I'm leaving the area on the nose that's going to be darker. I'm just leaving it gray for now. Now I'm adding a darker brown to the dog, particularly around the eyes. I'm going over that lighter brown. And I'm using 538.5, which is a Mars Violet. It's a beautiful color. If you don't have that one, you could substitute 409.5, which is a darker burnt umber color. So we're building up the layers on the dog until I get them just the way I want. Now I want to add a little golden ochre. This is a really pretty color. This is 231.5, and it's similar to actually the background that we're painting on, but it's brighter. So we want to brighten up the areas of the dog. And that looks very nice. Again, I'm cross-hatching. Now I'm working on the darker areas of the dog's muzzle. This is dark gray, which is 704.3. So it's a very dark gray, and I'm using the end of my Rembrandt stick, the rounded end that I've sanded and wiped off, because I'm really going in a smaller area. I'm paying close attention to my reference photo to make sure that I get the dark gray in just the right places. So I'm putting that around the muzzle. I'm going to add a little bit of dark gray around the eye as well. And some areas of the fur around the neck. Just wherever you see it in your reference photo. Here I'm putting some dark gray in the ears. The dark gray kind of sets the stage for darker colors to follow. But I'm not doing it all over the ear, just around the outside edges, because the center of the ear is pink, and we're going to add a pinkish color later on. Added a little bit on that outside eye. Just putting in a little more as I see it, taking my time as I go. This will be a 4-part series that you'll be able to watch from beginning to end on how I painted this dog. Here I'm adding a little dark gray to the bottom lip. And I'm also going to add some dark brown to that little tiny tuft of hair in the center of the forehead. Now we're going to paint the eyes, and we're going to zoom in close to do that. I've already outlined the eyes with a 6B charcoal pencil and marked the pupil and used a white charcoal pencil to mark the highlight. But I'm going around the outside of the eye now with a black new pastel 229. I'm also adding a shadow under the upper lid, and I'm darkening the pupil. New pastel black is the blackest black. Now I'm going to darken this area around the dog's eye with 259 gray, new pastel. So I'm just, I've sharpened this to a point as well with my M&R handheld brass sharpener. Works great. And I love to sharpen them so I can just lightly place the color where I want it, in this case around the dog's eye. Now I've sped this up a little bit. I'm just adding that gray underneath the dog's eye, using very light pressure. Now I'm going back with my new pastel black. I'm creating that bottom eyelid, a little line there, and I'm darkening underneath that. And I'm darkening above the eye. So we're really creating a lot of depth with just 2 colors. Back in real time now, I'm using a Flamingo 406 new pastel and a 383, and I'm working back and forth between the two, and I want to make that pinkish color. The 383 wasn't dark enough, so I switched back to the Flamingo. I don't want it bright red, but I want to add a dark enough color that shows red. And a little more black to get the corner of the dog's eye. And this is the 383 going around that tear duct. And a little more black. This is why I love new pastel and velour. It just makes beautiful animals. And I take my time working back and forth to get this just perfect. Now this is the gray 259, working on the outside edges a little bit. Now I'm going to work on the iris. So I'm using a 353 cordovan to darken outside around the pupil that we put in with this beautiful dark brown. And this is 253 cocoa brown that I'm adding to the outside edge. And we'll need a highlight color. After I add a little more cordovan, I'm going to stretch that out a little further. I'm darkening the pupil, and I'm adding a cast shadow over the lid. Continuing to make things a little darker, taking my time. This is 229 black. For the highlight, I'm using 233 raw sienna right at the bottom of the eye. Just gives it a lot of life. I'm going to color in the other eye using the 229 black to go around the outside rim. We don't have much of that eye showing. Putting in the pupil. Darkening that area. And using 259 gray. This is the 253 cocoa brown. I'm coloring the entire iris and darkening the upper area. You can't see much of this eye. Adding a little bit of 353 cordovan and some 233 raw sienna. If you want it a little brighter, just push the new pastel a little harder. Now here I'm using a white 211 new pastel that's been sharpened to put the catch light in the eye. Now I'm going to work on the nose. So I have a 305 spruce blue in my hand and I'm outlining our nose. Our nose is going to be black, but we're going to put a layer of spruce blue, which is a navy blue, underneath, and then add the black on top, and it increases the depth of color. So I'm being careful about my shapes. And now I'm going to color it blue. Just coloring it flat like you would in a coloring book. Now I'm going to undercoat the whole area of the muzzle that's going to be black with a dark blue. Now I could use the spruce blue, but I've decided to use a Rembrandt pastel. And this is 508.5, which is a really, really dark blue. Sometimes I'll break off a little piece of my spruce blue and use the side of it to color in an area. You could do that too. But this is just a dark navy blue. Now this is the 229 black. I've got a little extra pigment there with the blue, so I'm using my kneaded eraser to get that off. Now I'm going over the blue with a sanded side of Rembrandt black, which is 700.5, which is the blackest black. I know I told you 229 was, but this is a soft, velvety black. So I'm going over this muzzle. I'm going to put a little bit under the eyes too, very lightly. It's a beautiful color. Makes our dog look gorgeous. Now this is the 229 new pastel black, so I'm going over the blue with the new pastel. This is smaller and easier to control, which is why I'm not using the Rembrandt on it. I may add a little Rembrandt to it later, but right now I can get into those little areas better with the smaller new pastel. I'm evening up the mouth line with the new pastel. And I noticed in examining my reference photo and looking at it very closely that the dog there is a shade of pink in this area, very light and not a bright pink. So I'm using 383 to add some color just to this muzzle area, just a little bit, and then smoothing it with my finger. It's adds a nice depth of feeling to this area. I like the way it looks. That is a good color to use here. Now I'm adding the gray that we used before, the 704.7 or the 707.7 to that area, the side of the face. And I'm going to use a little more of the new Pastel 259 dark gray to darken this area on the side of the face. Now I've zoomed out a bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm usually using my finger to blend. So I'm adding some more color under the dog's chin with the darker brown that we were using. I'm also coloring under the collar a little bit, just darkening this area down. I'm going to fade it out, kind of vignette it. So I'm adding brown behind his ear, down around his face. Building up the color. I'm adding a little more brown between his eyes, on the bridge of his nose and over his eyes. I like to add color gradually and build it up so that I don't get too much color on all at once, because then you can't take it off. This is a 704.5 dark gray. I'm blending that black muzzle into the browner areas on the face, and that's a great way to do it. Adding a little bit in the corner of the eye. Here I'm adding a bit more dark brown, just gradually adding it there. And I'm going to add a little more Rembrandt black, 700.5. You'll notice I use half sticks that I've broken in half and then sanded to make a flat edge, and that's how I use my pastels. For more on that, if you'll look in the playlist, I have some videos on how to sand and use your pastels. This is the gray, just blending in that area, smoothing it with my finger. I don't want to forget the collar, so I'm using a new pastel black to color in the collar. It doesn't show very much, and but I want to add it. I hope you have enjoyed a part 1 of painting the German Shepherd in pastel. And there will be 3 other parts to this series that will be coming to YouTube. Be sure and sign up for my email list to find out about them, or like my YouTube page and you'll be notified when I publish a new video. I'm also going to be attaching a color list and a line drawing in the near future. Thanks for watching.